Welcome to another message from Columbus First Assembly. Thanks for listening as we strive to learn and live the Word and ways of God. Our hope is that you're encouraged by today's message.
Children, Teens, and Screens is our presentation title tonight. Our presenter is Denise Howell, and if I wish to be very formal, we could refer to her as the Very Reverend Denise Howell. Denise is one of our Assemblies of God licensed ministers. She has a considerable background in a variety of areas. She is an educator. She works at North Vernon in the high school. Is that correct? Jennings County High School. And so, but she has a much larger resume, which I will let her share those parts that are important to you. Denise approached me 2, 3, 4 months ago talking about a slightly different subject that is on her heart. She's done a lot of research and she's done some teaching. But as we visited, this particular topic and the need of this came up. And she had just come back from a seminar where much of the information that she is going to be presenting, or at least a portion of it, some of this is her own, came from the group that presented this. And by the way, if you haven't picked up one of these, please do. They're on the back table. There's one for each and every one of you, and if you have another family member or a friend that would like one, you can pick up the extras that are there. But this is a parent's guide to screens. I don't know how much you're going to cover of this. This is more supplemental, I would assume. Okay. So would you welcome this evening Denise Howell as she does this presentation on children, teens, and screens.
Hi, everybody. How is everyone? I brought my phone, just so you know, in case one of you has to call me or text me. I've got it. Okay. All right. Could we start with prayer? Oh, Father God, you put so much on our hearts sometimes, and sometimes we can't take it all in. But this is a topic that so many of us know has an impact in our world, and we don't even quite know where to start, God. But tonight we're going to talk about a few things so that we will know what we need to know. And it is your way that once we know something, we cannot unknow it. So I pray that we walk away with the wisdom and knowledge that you would like to impart on us tonight, Lord. Let us be open to receive in the name of Jesus. Amen. Well, I did. I went to a conference a while ago. We can go ahead. I think there's a slide. I just want to. All right. So I'll just let you guys. This is what happens when parents try to text their kids. I just think it's funny that we think we know what we're doing and then we don't. The one on the right just kills me. Hey, you left your phone at home. Are you kidding me? Parents are so funny sometimes. I'm a school teacher. I teach high school, 10th grade at Jennings County High School, and I am so blessed to be able to be face-to-face with 132 amazing kids every single week. They pass through my room, and I love every one of them, and I'm going to talk to you more about that later. But the importance of this topic tonight is something that I think we all need to pay attention to. Is there anybody in here that has a cell phone? Yeah. As I was sitting at the front and church was about to start and the numbers were kind of clicking down and the clock was ticking down, I turned around and looked, and there were a lot of people on their cell phones, because that's our go-to, isn't it? It's just kind of what we do. And we're grown adults, and we make good decisions, and we're kind of raising up this generation of children who know nothing other than life with a cell phone. In fact, Pastor Rick and I were talking about that right before church, that this is the generation of children that don't know life without it. I have to confess, I was born in the late 50s, and so for me, there were no computers or no cell phones or anything like that in my childhood, but I have to admit I was one of those people that the minute mobile phones came out, I had one. It was in a bag about this big, and it actually wired into my car, and the receiver was huge. And there was nothing mobile about it because it was wired to the car. So the second I stepped out of the car, I didn't have it in my hands anymore. So I guess it had wheels. That was about it. When I was in the car, it had wheels. But so it's important that we kind of look at this evolution of things that have kind of come along. And you can go on to the next slide. This is a scripture that Pastor Rick's used quite a bit through the parenting series that he's done, and it's been a fabulous series, I think, for even those of us that aren't parents. I'm not a parent, but it's important because all of us connect with children in some way, and we need to be vigilant. I listened to everything you said through the eyes of a teacher, and as an aunt, and just somebody that really loves children, and there was so much great information in what you've been sharing with us. This scripture, this morning when I was on my way to work, it was going through my mind, and I love the line, like arrows in the hand of a warrior. And I just, that one line, I couldn't get it off my mind, because when you think of an arrow, you want an arrow that's straight. You want one that's going to go the distance, that's going to hit the target. You don't want one that's not got precision, that's weighted wrong, because it's not going to go the distance, And so there's an obligation to that in that message, that one line. I just hear, that calling out for us to be creating and tooling really precise and straight arrows in our world. And I think we're capable of doing that. I'm hoping tonight that we're doing nothing more than maybe giving you an opportunity to start a conversation in your home. Not an argument. Okay, I want to clarify that, but a conversation at home. So let's go on. Let's go on to the next thing. All right, I just wanted to explain, and Pastor Rick did mention this a little bit, but I have a background with the Cornelius Foundation International. My husband and I founded this nonprofit organization back in 1995. We rescue schools in Central America. That's what we've been doing all this time. And a lot of the schools that we work with are very remote and in tiny villages along the Belize and Guatemalan border. And we go where nobody else wants to go. I mean, if you have to hike mud deep or swim through a creek to get there, we're probably the organization that's going there, because not even the government does that. And so we've been doing that for a lot of years, and I'm going to mention a connection to what we're talking about today, back to the Cornelius Foundation. But I've had a heart for kids my whole life. And as an educator, actually right now I'm teaching public school. This is my third career, and I've already spent 22 years at one organization, and I worked for the state of Indiana for about 15 years. But this is only my 7th year teaching in the private or in the public school system. But I have a degree as an educator, and that was my passion, and I've always been in schools one way or another as a volunteer or something, but just out of a passion for kids. And when I worked for the government, I was working for the Department of Child Services. Don't shoot arrows at me right now, but a lot of people have different feelings about DCS, but I saw some really good things transpiring there. The other piece of information that's coming, or the biggest piece of information that's coming to you tonight, was out of an amazing seminar that I went to this summer. And it was so much fun. It was, they were all pastors and their families, and there were 80 countries represented, if you can imagine, 800 cities represented from all over the world. We were all in one room praising Jesus together. It was so incredible. But we were all there because there were a series of some really hot topic items that were being rolled out to all these pastors, just things to contemplate and think about. And one of them was this. And the reason it hit me, and there were other things that were important, things like the LGBTQ plus discussions were going on, but this hit me because I am face to face with this every day in my classroom. And it concerns me. So I wanted to bring it back. When I talked to Pastor Rick, I was so thankful that he was willing to just give us the time to take this evening to talk about this topic in real basic terms. And so that's what we're going to do tonight. You can go on. The next slide, these are the 3 things. There are so many things attached to this. We're going to focus on these 3 things tonight, on the psychological health issues connected to usage, to wellness, and also to safety. But I want to point out up here that when we say screen time, and you need to know this because for most people that are involved in research or study, screen time pertains to all three of these. It's not just the amount of time that you spend on this. It includes computers and television. Okay, now there's some of you that probably have an environment where the big screen's going and the laptop's sitting right here and you're on your cell phone. So maybe you're doing all three at once, but this is our culture now. But when we're talking about screen time related to children, we're looking at those three things combined. And I'm going to refer back to that later, so I don't want you to think I'm just talking about a cell phone, okay? All right, I also wanted to talk about just the importance of you being here. And some of you are parents, maybe of young kids. Some of you have teenagers. Some of you have grown children. Some of you are grandparents. I don't even have children, but I have a concern for this because I love kids. But the truth is, if we are around kids, we need to be aware of this because we have a responsibility to be knowledgeable about this regardless of our relationship to them. Some of the greatest lessons I learned in my life, I learned from the people in my church. My mom died when I was 3. My dad was almost 70 when I was born. And my mom made my dad promise that I would be at church every Sunday. That was the promise. She'll be there. And so here's what he did. He got me up every Sunday morning. He got me dressed. He drove me to church, and he dropped me off. So from the time I was 4, I was in the front pew because our pastor had to keep an eye on me so I wouldn't run up and down the aisles, so I sat in the front pew. But what I learned in church, I learned from my church family. And I learned about Jesus there, and I learned what was right and wrong there, and I learned the things that were dangerous to me there. And so your role just in being in church with our children at church is so critical. So I hope these things kind of stick with you. You can go on. We're going to look at some things. I know you can read, so I'm not going to sit here and read statistics to you, and I apologize. When I teach PowerPoint presentations to my English class, the first thing I say is, don't load them up with a bunch of statistics. Well, here's a bunch of statistics. So let's take a look at it. I know you can read it on your own, but there are 2 bullet points that I really want to point out to you right here. And the first one is 93% of parents set controls on their computers at home. That's awesome that you do that. You care about what your children are allowed to see. You're trying to protect their innocence of their minds. That's a wonderful thing. I was really excited to see that statistic. But right under it, only 51% of parents monitor their children's cell phone usage. So we're not doing as good of a job with monitoring cell phones, as we are computers. The concern is hardly any kid is going to pick up a computer anymore. They're usually on their phones. The only time I know students at JCHS to be on their computer is when they're on their school computer that's been issued to them, and I say, okay, we're doing an assignment on the computer, get them out. Other than that, I see kids on a cell phone. You can do anything on a cell phone you can do on a computer. Anything, sometimes more. So those 2 statistics are pretty critical for you to be able to understand. And I want to apologize to you because I'm an old lady, and sometimes I have to put my glasses down to just read my notes. And I don't want to miss anything. I've tried to put as much in here as I can to sort of help paint this picture for you. But those are some big numbers up there. And the average age child, 12, that receives their cell phone. I know I have little nieces and nephews, and when they're 8 and 9 years old, they're like, Daddy, when am I going to get my phone? When am I going to get a phone? And, by the time they're 12, they're preteen, and they've got one. And this is just kind of the normal, everybody else does it, so I'm going to get it for my kids. So that's just sort of the way it goes. We can go on to the next one. All right, so we're going to spend some time here. I want to talk about some of the emerging impacts that are coming along psychologically with the use of cell phones. This kind of blew me away. The first thing was just the whole issue of ADHD. I know there's at least another teacher in here, but I don't know about you, but we get something called IEPs. They're individualized education plans. It's for children that have something else that they need in the classroom besides just a teacher teaching them. They need extra time on a test, Or instead of reading a test on their own, they need somebody to read the test to them. Or maybe it means that they don't take the test with the class, but they go take the test with a resource teacher because there's too much anxiety in a classroom when they're trying to test. There are a lot of different things like that. And I just want you to know that I have 132 students and I have 57 IEPs. That's a lot. This is the year I think I've got more now than I've ever seen before. It's a big number. It's a lot of my students who need special attention or special conditions just to get through their sophomore year in English class. It breaks my heart. And I've thought to myself, what are we doing to these kids? Is it that we're eating too much at McDonald's and it's just, what is it that's causing it? Well, there's some study that's going on. The information that I'm sharing actually comes out of Vanguard University. And the gentleman that gave the presentation, his name's going to be on your packet. He's the one that put it together. But one of the things that he said is that as he's studying and doing the research for his PhD, he's noticing that, and the study is not complete yet, but he gave us an update as to where they are right now with it. With ADHD, what's happening, first of all, is that they're seeing that there's an increase in ADHD being reported and diagnosed. We see that on our IEPs at school. We see a lot of ADHD at school. And so what's happening is that they're trying to look at how cell phone usage and screens are impacting that. And what they did is, in his study, they took students that have ADHD and they put them on a 30-day fast from televisions, computers, and phones. 30 days. Can you imagine life at your house, 30 days with none of that stuff? It'd be crazy at your house without that stuff. But 30 days with none of it. And here's what happened. Almost 50% of the numbers reduced in the behaviors connected to ADHD. They didn't all go away, but the symptoms reduced. That's pretty impressive. And I forget, I think he said it was almost 30%. In almost 30%, it went away completely, which means that percentage, those were false positive diagnoses. They were only caused because of screen time. Okay? When you think about it, and I know that you have had a career in production, so you probably know this better than I do, but on television, on a TV screen, the position or angle of the camera will change about every 20 seconds. Okay, it might be that it shoots from over here 1 second, and then 20 seconds later the angle shot is here, or it shoots the face of one person in one direction and then the other person another direction. So there's this constant change going on. In video games, it's every 2 to 5 seconds. Okay, and so what that's causing the brain to do is to shift and to shift and to shift. And finally that becomes a normal pattern for the brain. It almost becomes addicted to that activity that's happening, all right? And it's hard to break. It's really hard to break because when the brain doesn't get it, it goes looking for it other places. It causes the attention span to become much shorter. That was one of the other results that's coming out of Vanguard, is that they're seeing that children can sit still longer when they've gone 30 days without a computer or a cell phone. I'm a teacher. 90 minutes with 25 teenagers. Can you imagine? It's squirmy all the time. My lesson plan changes every 20 minutes because it has to. If I expect my students to sit in their seat and read a book for 90 minutes, it's not going to happen. It's just not. In fact, today I did an activity where they were back to back and doing a communication project because they have to be in motion sometimes. It's just part of it. It's how I have to teach now. The next thing is desensitization or desensitizing. This should come as no surprise. Forgive me for my glasses, but this is where I want to be able to share some things with you. I'm a school safety specialist. I was trained by the state of Indiana to be on a safety team at our high school. And so I've done this now for about 5 years. And it's a certification that we're required to keep up every year, and it helps us to have certain kinds of eyes to see certain kinds of things going on in our school building. And I hate that we even have to talk about things like school shootings, but we are on alert for these kind of things all the time. We have procedures that we follow. If there's a lockdown, we know what we have to do, and everyone is trained and knowledgeable about those things. But it's interesting to me that a lot of court cases where people are being tried for school shootings or mass shootings tie back to video gaming. Okay, I want to just mention some things here. So, Adam Lanza, Sandy Hook Elementary School, remember that? He testified to the fact that he played a lot of violent video computer games in his bedroom alone most of the evening when he was a teenager. That was what he did with his time. James Holmes, he went on a rampage in the movie theater in Aurora, Colorado. Do you remember that one? Okay. He played a game called World of Warcraft. I hear my students talking about this video. It's infamous for its addiction. It creates the player to be in like a role-playing situation where they're in combat with somebody else. And it's a very violent game. Anders Breivik shot 68 people in Norway. And in his testimony, it came out that he played a game called Call of Duty. And he actually used the game to train himself for the mass murder he was going to do. He replicated what was in the video in person, and he trained and trained and trained and trained, and then he went and massacred 68 people. Michael Carnell shot a group of girls in a prayer group. I hate that we even have to talk about this. He did a thing. It's on the video where I guess he was captured. Part of his shooting was captured on video. And what he did, he didn't move off center hardly at all. He shot slightly from the left, slightly from the right, slightly back and forth. He was going back and forth. He didn't move way over. He didn't cover a lot of ground. He was pretty stationary and very slight movements. This is a technique that video gamers will practice to drive their score up. And that's actually being looked at now. A lot of times if they have video of something, they'll look for the style of the shooter. They can tie it straight back to video games. All right. I want to talk for a minute. On the bottom of the screen up here is, you've probably, if you have kids with video games, you've probably seen, these are the ratings. I think there's 9 of them. I can't remember. But you should know the ratings on your children's video games. If you're buying video games for your kids, you should do some reading and research before you ever give them to them. Just because your kid comes and says, "Oh, Mom, can I have this for Christmas?" Don't say yes. Say, "Let me look into it and I'll let you know." If you can actually play the game before you buy it, it's a good idea. I want to let you know that there's a rating of E10 plus, and that's for elementary age children, age 10 or above, okay? Now, I think part of this is just filtering through your mindset about your child. You know your kid better than anybody else, right? So think about this, the kind of 10-year-old they are. Because that rating, at that point with the rating system, they introduce mild violence, suggestive language, and sexual content. Age 10. That may be okay for some age 10s. I don't know. I don't think so, but maybe. I mean, I teach 10th graders. I have one 10th grader who's working on his pilot's license right now. I have another 10th grader who cannot navigate his way through the lunchroom. So, I mean, you know your children. You know them. So I'm just saying you have to really look at these things. Sit down and play these games with your children. Or maybe if you know somebody that's already got it, ask if you can come over and preview it before you buy it. There's just so much. Overall, video games increase violent behavior. That's the result of things in general. That should be no surprise to us. But what we see with children that are playing video games, we see more incidences of bullying, and we also see more incidences of self-harm, cutting, suicide attempts, and things like that, because they don't have the same view of death that we do, because they've been desensitized to it, okay? They don't see anything wrong with harm, okay? And it becomes really concerning. I've seen this more and more. I've seen, even in the 7 years I've been teaching, a huge increase in the number of fighting incidences that we have in the school. All right, I'm going to move on to sleep deprivation. Oh, wait, go back. Yeah, sleep deprivation. I know I'm stretching this out, but these are things I think you need to know. With sleep deprivation, there was also a study done by the Journal of Child Development, and it's a fascinating study. I spent quite a bit of time researching it myself. But what it's talking about are I'll tell you what, Sherry, you're in the back of the room. I know. Do you teach a first period class, or is that your prep? You do? Okay. So I have first period, and I always stand at the door when my kids are coming in. Hey, how's it going? How's your day? How you feeling? They walk in, they go, I'm so tired, Mrs. Howell. I'm just so tired. I mean, they're 15. Come on, they're not that tired. I'm 61. Come on, I'm there. So it's like, you guys, wake up. I'm like, I'm going to wake you up in class today, and they're like, oh, please don't. Anyway, here's what's happening. They are on their phones at night. Okay, just so you know, phone time is replacing their sleep. Also, screens, even if they have a desk and their computer is open and the screen is on, it reduces the melatonin in their body. So those screens need to be closed and shut out at night. They should not be on. These are the things that take away from just what they need for their bodies. And when you think of all the things going on with the teenage body, one more thing you don't need. They need their rest. That even if they are like texting a friend, or they're watching a YouTube video and then they shut it off at 1 o'clock and they think, I'm going to go to sleep, it takes them longer to get to sleep because their brain is still like click, 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 click. They can't shut it off. Okay, it just takes forever. I have students that tell me, I just can't sleep at night. Well, I'm not surprised. I don't even see you in the hallway without your phone, and you're walking down the hall, you're going to trip over the trash can or something, like look up. So these are things that are really causing issues for our students. Depression is the last one. What they're finding is children who are depressed will spend more time on a phone than children that are not depressed. This is not brain surgery either for us to figure out, because of isolation. They can isolate themselves. They still have a connection to the world. They still have interaction, but they are isolated. And this, for me, I see this. I can tell you in my classroom which kids are struggling with depression. And this is one of the signs. It also puts an emphasis on relationships that are impersonal. And so they never develop that ability to have a true friendship with somebody. And can you think of anything to cause depression more than that? Not to have a real friend? That breaks my heart. I see a lot of lonely kids in high school. Okay, let's go to the next slide. All right, I want to talk about safety a little bit. This is kind of tied to what I was saying a few minutes ago, but there's this generation of kids that are growing up, and they've grown up with a cell phone in their hand. They knew how to get into their mom and dad's phone by the time they were 18 months old. They figured it out or whatever. But this generation is known as the transparent generation. And here's what is happening. These kids are more globally connected than you and I ever were and may ever be. They have friends in Japan, in Germany, in Canada. They know people all over the U.S. But if they were to sit down here in a pew and try to have a conversation with you face to face, they couldn't do it. They just couldn't. The reason they're called transparent is because they're connected socially to Instagram, to Facebook, to Snapchat, anything they can get their hands on. And they're communicating, and they're living their whole life out in the open. If they have to go to the bathroom, everybody knows it. They just tell everything. There's no secret. There's nothing. This is just kind of an interesting thing, and I saw this in a news article, and it was about Steve Jobs. I think Steve Jobs was a brilliant man. He was really smart. You know, he started out in calligraphy. That's how he got interested in computers. He loved fonts, and he loved designing them, and so that's how he got his start. But when he was off and running and they were getting ready to launch the iPhone, he decided to do a focus group study. And so he asked a bunch of moms of little bitty kids, bring your kids, we have a game day we want to do with the kids. And so they put them all in this room. They put all these little toddlers in a room, like I think there were 15 of them, no furniture, but all over the floor were different things, like little balls and little blocks and little triangles and pyramids and all kinds of stuff. And they stood behind a mirror and they just watched these kids play. And do you know what they gravitated to? They gravitated to something that was in this shape right here. It was a rectangle. And they could hold it on both sides like this. And then he said, that's the shape of an iPhone right there. That's what we're going to do. So that was a study that they did. I can't imagine a round iPhone. So it's kind of hard to even get my brain around it. But that was a news article that I read about Steve. All right. I have a background tied to my work with the Cornelius Foundation. Pastor Rick, how am I doing? Perfect. Okay. Tied with the Cornelius Foundation, that got me interested in modern slavery. And I'm not going to go into this a lot, but I do want you to be aware of it. And that I teach a class on modern slavery at Jennings County High School with leadership students. And one of the things that I did about 5 years ago, I applied for a grant at Eli Lilly, and they were crazy enough to give me $12,000. And they said, you have to spend every penny of it on your research. So I did. And my goal was to build a curriculum for high schools and youth pastors and different groups that would help make students, children, aware of the dangers of modern slavery. And a lot of people get confused by this, and they say, didn't that end with the Emancipation Proclamation back in 1863? No. Slavery is worse now than it's ever been. And so most of us think of modern slavery as human trafficking, which is, if this is slavery, okay, human trafficking is about this much of it. There are about 9 major kinds of trafficking or slavery that's going on in the world today. But in the course of teaching this class to my students, all I do is I teach them, and then I turn them loose. They go teach the whole county. It's so cool. I just love the way it works. But slavery is the second largest humanitarian issue in the world today. And I think it's a lie. The number 1 humanitarian issue in the world today is the drug trafficking trade. It's number 1. I disagree. Because you can't run the drug trafficking network without slaves. So I think it's flipped. That's my own opinion. If I ever get another grant from Lilly, maybe I'll go research that. I don't know. But that interests me, and I think it's a total lie. But what I've learned is for students and children, I'm going to say people under the age of 21, the most dangerous tool to put in their hand to get them entrapped or enticed is a cell phone that is unmonitored by a parent. Okay? It seems subtle, and you might think, that's a third world problem, isn't it? Doesn't that just happen over in Africa or in the inner city? Yeah, it happens there, but guess what? We have issues of it right here in Jennings County and Bartholomew County. It's right here. In fact, on the south side of Indianapolis, they just busted a ring of people that were selling children. So if you think it's not here, you're wrong. It's here. Okay? Ooh. Can you give us some good news, Denise? I'm going to try before this is over. Let's go on to the next slide. All right. Ooh, we have to look at these numbers. 11 is the average age of a child that sees porn online for the first time. 11. 1 in 7 children have been sexually solicited online. Porn is the 4th most searched word by children under 7. You know why it's porn? Because they don't know how to spell pornography. That's what I was told. 82% of predators study teens' likes and dislikes, and 65% of predators know where their victims live and go to school. These are your kids. If you think it's not going to happen to your child, you're in denial. You're just in denial. Don't think that, because it is so possible. All right, let's move on. I want to talk about what you can do about it, because you can do so much. And this is really what I want you to walk away with. You need to enforce the rules in your house early. It's so hard to do it when you have a teenager and then you're trying to enforce the rules. It's so hard. But you know what? We didn't know all this back then. So don't beat yourself up over this. Start when you can. And if you have little kids or grandkids, mail them that packet. Mail their parents that packet. There are some things that we have to get straight with our kids, all right? You have to set the rules and guidelines. You have to do it. They're not going to do it. They're not going to say, "Oh, Mom, I won't go where I'm not supposed to go." We know they will. So you have to do it. You need to remember something. That is not their cell phone. That is your cell phone. I'm just saying. Okay? You need to parent that way. It's hard. All right? Let them know that you're watching. If they think you're watching, do you think that they're going to go on the deep web? No, they're not going to do that. And the kids take their phones to school. School's not really a great place for phones. I'm just saying, as a teacher, I have a no phone policy in my classroom. They sneak it in every little crack and crevice they have. And I'm like, if I find your cell phone on you, it's mine for the rest of the day. And so I take them. They always say, "Mrs. Howell, don't be that teacher." I'm like, I love being that teacher. I love it. Because I want you to get some knowledge about English in my classroom. I don't care where John's going to eat tonight and you're going to meet up with him. I could care less. All right. Monitor their texting. Get driving apps if they're drivers. You do not want kids texting and driving. Consider a locator app on the phone. Do you know about mirroring? If you don't, you should. Every service provider that there is offers mirroring on the phone. You can mirror your child's phone to yours, where you see every single thing happening. You can do that. And I'm telling you what, I've seen some phone conversations and texts going on in the classroom that would make your skin crawl. I'm just saying. So you should be monitoring. Remember that 51% that we don't monitor? Whew, are they getting away with stuff? And I don't want to be the mean. I'm so glad that there are some of the teenagers not in here, because I know some of those teenagers and I love them with all my heart. They would be so mad at me right now. But I just want you to know. You need to model behavior for them. If you're spending 9 hours a day on your devices, it's sending a message to them that it's okay. So you need to model for them. If you are in the car with your children sitting next to you and you're texting and driving, shame on you. Don't do that. Don't do that. I'm going to tell you about Friday speeches in my classroom. My kids always say, "It's Friday, Mrs. Howell." I'm like, "I know, I can't wait." I always give them a message. The last 10 minutes of class, I told my principal, I don't teach English the last 10 minutes of Friday school. I sit my kids down. I have a rug in my room. We sit in a circle like they did in kindergarten. We sit in a circle, and I tell them some kind of a moral lesson. And at the end of the lesson, I said, "Look, it's the weekend. I don't want you to text and drive or drink and drive or get in cars with people that do, even if it's your mom and dad, okay? Because I love you, and I want to see you back in my classroom on Monday, okay? And they're all like, we love you too, Mrs. Howell. It's the best part of my whole week. I love it. But we have to tell them we love them, and we have to tell them there are rules, and we have to have them stick to those rules, or they're not going to see the end of high school. They need to know the dangers of enticement and entrapment. I told you that I did this curriculum on modern slavery. The sex traffic industry is huge, and Indiana is a crossroads. You need to know that. Children that live in less than metropolitan areas are huge targets because they're bored, all right? And they like to be engaged. So if anybody here have a Facebook page? Do you have anybody on your Facebook page that you don't really know? Oh, yeah, see, okay, that happens. I asked that in my classroom the other day. All the kids raised their hand. Oh, yeah, I don't know everybody on my Facebook page. That's crazy. You need to help them monitor their Facebook page, their Instagram. If there's anybody on there that you don't know and they don't know, you need to get rid of them. I know Dr. Phil's he's under the gun right now, but he had a girl on his show one time who went on a rant on Facebook because she got in an argument with her mom. She was 14 years old. There was a lady on her Facebook that said, oh, that's too bad. I'm so sorry. Sounds like she's really a witch. She's like, oh, I hate her. Can't stand my mom. She goes, oh, that's awful. Hey, meet me for coffee. We'll talk about it. So she said, okay, I'm going to jump on my bicycle. Let's go to Starbucks. So they went to Starbucks. Her mom didn't see her for 4 years. 4 years. Don't let your kids get away from you. Whew. Participate in their online world. Tell them you can have a Facebook page, but I'm one of your friends. You want an Instagram? No problem. I'm one of your Instagram buddies. Watch the shows that they watch. Let your room be the charging station. Clean up the strangers. And just enforce it. We'll go to the last slide. I think it's the last slide. Do we have a last slide? Here we go. This is what is recommended by the studies coming out of Vanguard, and also Child Psychology Today also makes these same recommendations. This is what you should be allowing. And I think it's actually in your packet, so you don't even need to write it down or anything, but I think that's there. I just want to say, though, 2 hours a day for somebody that's 13 to 19, that's a problem right now, because guess what? Some of my kids are on their computers doing assignments 30 minutes maybe in my classroom. So this is a big enforcement. Is it doable? I don't know. But anything you do to change it and bring it down is going to help it. I hope we have a minute for some questions. I'll do my best. I'm not degreed in this. I'm just a crazy educator that finds it interesting. Okay. Is there a question? Yeah, Pastor Tim. The parents are the biggest problem. They say, I want to be able to reach my kid. And we've tried to do no phones. Silver Creek High School, no phones. They have hardly any fighting there. You know, but I agree. I think I don't know. Thank you all so much. It's been a blessing to share this.
Our time is up. However, Denise is not running out the door.
Nope.
So if you want to catch her in the lobby, if there's a very specific question that you would like, I would recommend that everyone pick up one of the packets. It talks about how to put parental controls on devices and step by step. If these are outdated and it doesn't work on your device, but it'll be close, and you can find out some other information. It gives a whole list of video games as of about 2016, and their addictive quality. Most of the video games that are in here are still being used by our kids. There may be some new ones that are not. So there's much in this, and I've only had an opportunity to really skim through a lot of it, but there's been some other things that I have done. So this is available again. They're on the back table. Pick up a copy for yourself if you want to pick up an extra copy for someone else. Denise's purpose, and I think she stated it well, was hopefully it will generate some conversations between you and your kids, between you and your grandchildren and their parents. I am not, and Denise is not, against modern technology. It is with us. We cannot ignore it. It has helped me immensely in pastoral ministry, in some of my research, having many things available quickly. I'm with someone, and of course I don't have my paper Bible with me. I can find a verse of scripture. I can find it in the translation. I memorized it. There are many, many, many good things. But with anything that's good, that is as powerful as our devices, there are dangers, many, many dangers. We just must become wise men and women. And I hope that we are, and that's the reason, is just to put some things in your hand and get some information in your head that you can go forward with this. Denise is available. She'll be around if you want to ask any questions. Probably if you want to slip out to the lobby, because I know the worship team is going to be practicing here in just a few minutes. Thank you all for being here. Let's thank Denise for her time. Thank you.
You've been listening to a message from Columbus First Assembly. We hope that you've been encouraged in your spiritual journey. If you're not part of a local church and would like to attend one of our regular services, our church is located at the corner of 10th and Iowa Street in Columbus, Indiana. Our Sunday morning worship services start at 10 a.m. and our Wednesday evening studies begin at 7 p.m. And while you're online, check out our website at columbusfirstassembly.org for details and information about our church. You will also find other messages and series that you can listen to or download. Thanks for spending some time with us and for taking advantage of this resource from Columbus First Assembly, where we strive to learn and live the Word and ways of God.